Ever since the last Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin became the hardest money in the world. But what exactly does that mean? Hard money essentially refers to money that's more difficult to create than something that's called, let's say, easy money. Hard money is something, so for something to be considered hard money, it has to have uh, it has to have a difficulty to produce it. There has to be some kind of effort that goes in. There has to be some kind of time, some kind of energy that's put into it. Hardness of money is essentially just a comparison between the additional supply of one form of money versus another. So there's hard money, there's easy money, right? So hard money is something that takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of time to produce. On the other hand, easy money is something that's very easy to produce. For example, fiat currencies may be the easiest form of money that we ever had because you could create more with the press of a button, right? On the other hand, gold takes a lot of time, effort, energy, a lot of labor, lots of strategy to produce. You have to mine it, you have to go into the earth to get it out. Uh, all that stuff makes gold the most valuable asset in the world, right? So a lot of people want to hold gold because it has certain characteristics that make it the best form of money in the world, right? On the other hand, something like, let's say, silver. Silver is a little easier to produce, doesn't have that much effort that goes into it. It's easier to find in the Earth's crust. So, because of that, it's easier money, right? On April 19th, Bitcoin became the hardest money in the world. The reason why April 19th is so significant is because April 19th was when the last Bitcoin halving took place. The halving is where the supply of Bitcoin is decreased by 50% for the next almost 4 years, 210,000 blocks. So every block takes about 10 minutes to produce. 210,000 blocks is about 4 years, right? So on April 19th, Bitcoin took over a record that gold held for 5,000 years, for a very, very long time. I mean, it's held the record since the Earth was created, however long ago that was. But the relevant part here is that Bitcoin took over that record. And that's something that I think is going to reflect in the assets by market cap, right? So if you look at this chart, you can see here that gold is the most valuable asset in the world, $15.637 trillion market cap. The issue with the thing that I find to be a problem with gold is that nobody actually knows how much gold there is, right? How do you account for all of the gold that there is in the world? You have no idea how much is being used for jewelry. You have no idea how much is being used in industrial production. You have no idea how much is just being held by people. You have no idea how much is kept, let's say, underground, right? People tried to hide it. People tried to prevent their government from taking it from them. So you have no idea how much gold there is, right? What if over the next few decades, we're able to find ways to increase the supply of gold and add more gold to the economy? Nobody can tell you that that's not going to happen, right? If the price of gold goes up, it gives miners an incentive to find more gold, right? The way that they can find more gold is either to dig deeper or they can go into the oceans. I mean, it would lead to a lot of environmental destruction. It would be terrible for the earth, and there's nothing that we can do to stop it, right? So if gold's price keeps going up, right now it's $2,329 per ounce, but let's say mining under the ocean costs something like $3,000 an ounce to find. If the price of gold goes to $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, why wouldn't miners do more to find it under the ocean, right? I don't know what the cost is. I'm just putting numbers out there, but I'm just saying if the price goes up, we will probably find ways to produce more gold. We have no idea how much there is. We have no idea how much there will be. There's no account for how much gold exists, right? On the other hand, Bitcoin has a very specific supply schedule. Historically, gold's production has been about 1.5 to 2% per year. So the supply increases by 1.5 to 2% per year. On the other hand, I'm going to show you some numbers after. Bitcoin's supply actually dropped to 0. So the new supply entering the economy dropped to about 0.08. Sorry, it was 0.8% per year, right? Over time, this will keep dropping. this is the first time that gold has a competitor for something that's produced less in lower quantities than gold. Gold has held this record, like I said, for 5,000 years. It's going to be, it was very difficult for, of course, for something like Bitcoin to even become a reality. But on the other hand, you can see that gold has held this top position for, I mean, like I said, 5,000 years. And it's held this position by a long shot, right? You can see here that gold is 5 times more valuable than Microsoft. Microsoft is the next most valuable asset. The very next one is $2.6 trillion Apple, $1.9 trillion Nvidia, Alphabet, which is Google, about the same. They're almost exactly the same. Saudi Aramco, 1.94 million or 1.594 trillion. Amazon, 1.83 trillion. Silver, 1.5 trillion. And Bitcoin all the way at the bottom. They're in 9th place. Well, not at the bottom, but 9th place in the entire world at 1.26 trillion, right? So these are the most valuable assets in the world. You can see how many companies, how many businesses Bitcoin is more valuable than. You can see Visa. Bitcoin is 2 times more valuable than Visa. Bitcoin is 2 times more valuable than Tesla, Walmart, all these companies. There's so many companies on here, Home Depot, Costco. Bitcoin is multiples more valuable than these companies because the world is starting to figure out that it's the best form of money out there, right? And this halving really changed things because now we know for a fact that Bitcoin's supply is more scarce than gold, right? We know for a fact how much Bitcoin is going to be produced. We know for a fact how much when the next halving is. We know what the next supply will be. I want to actually show you a chart here that I just created. Let me switch over. Okay, so this chart is going to show you some different calculations that I've done. So this chart, you may have seen something similar to this chart in another spreadsheet. I tried to remake it myself. I wanted to update it, so I added the numbers. I changed it up myself. I think this chart is going to really blow your mind on how things are going to happen in the future, right? So let's start with just each halving. So each halving happens about 4 years later, 4 years apart, 3 years 9, 3 years 10 months apart. You can go through every single one. Sometimes it goes faster, sometimes it goes a little slower. But the next halving will be in 2028, some point in 2028. It might be, I believe it should be in March or February 2028, but I guess we'll see. It depends on how quickly blocks are mined. Depends on the trend for how long it takes for a block to be mined, right? So over time, we're going to see by the next halving, by the 2028 halving, so right now Bitcoin's inflation rate is slightly less than what gold's is. I'll go through the numbers, but Bitcoin's inflation rate is slightly less than what gold's is. In 2028, it'll be a quarter of what gold's inflation rate is, right? So the amount of Bitcoin being produced and added to the economy will be a quarter of what's being added to the economy for gold, right? So let's look through these numbers. Right now we're at the 5th. We had the 4th halving. We're in basically the 5th the 5th period after the halving. So the 5th period of Bitcoin's existence. So each existence is called an epoch, I guess you can say. I think that's how it's pronounced. But we're in the 5th epoch right now. So the 5th epoch goes from block 840,000 all the way to block 1,050,000. In that time, there's going to be 210,000 blocks created. And in that period, we're going to go from 19,687,500 Bitcoin. We're going to produce, you see here, 656,250 Bitcoin. And at block 1,050,000, we're going to have 20,343,750 Bitcoin produced, right? So that's the total that's going to be there. You can see here the production of how many coins are being produced every minute, how much time it takes per coin to be produced. So for example, you can see here From January 3rd, 2009 to November 20th, 2012, 5 coins were produced every single minute. It took 12 seconds to produce a coin. On November 28th, 2012, this production dropped by 50%, right? It went from 50 coins per block to 25. Now it's taking 2.5 coins. Your miners are receiving 2.5 coins per minute. It's taking 24 seconds to produce each coin. From from July 9th, 2016 to May 11th, 2020, we went to 12.5 coins being created every 10 minutes. And that meant 1.25 coins per minute, right? It took 48 seconds to create a coin. The very last epoch was 6.25 Bitcoin every 10 minutes being produced. The block subsidy was 6.25 Bitcoin, 900 Bitcoin produced per day. Total. So if you go through the numbers, you can see all the numbers here. So it went from the first epoch was 50% was mined, second epoch 25%, third epoch 12.5%. Keeps going, keeps increasing over time. But the important thing here is that you need to see the inflation rate, right? This is the rate at which new Bitcoin are being produced and added to the economy, right? So recall that we said gold's inflation rate was about, what was it? 1.5%, 1.57% or so. On the other hand, Bitcoin's inflation rate over the next 4 years, so it's going to be 210,000 blocks. It'll be around 3 years and 10 months. Let's say 3.8 years, 3.8 years. So we'll go this divided by 3.8. So the average inflation over that period is about 0.8%, right? Let's add this. We'll add this column here. So just added another column to my chart. So you can see here that Bitcoin's inflation rate, if you divide this number by, if you divide this number by 1.57%, Bitcoin's inflation rate is half of what gold's inflation rate is, almost a little bit more than half. But over time, we're going to see that Bitcoin's inflation rate keeps dropping. It's going to be 0.4%, the 0.2%, 0.1%, 0.05%, 0.025. It'll keep dropping, right? Eventually, we're going to have barely any Bitcoin being produced. So we can also see here the amount of Bitcoin being produced. I had some cells highlighted specifically because I wanted to show you what exactly I want to talk about what exactly they mean. So at the 7th epoch, we're going to see that the block subsidy is less than 1 Bitcoin, right? So the people mining for Bitcoin are going to receive less than 1 Bitcoin. The entire world's production will be less than 1 Bitcoin every 10 minutes, right? That's important, right? Because if you have 1 Bitcoin, let's say, okay, so right now the block subsidy works out to be, the reward that miners are getting works out to be something like $500,000, $400,000, something like that, somewhere along those lines. And that reward has been increasing over time, right? The dollar value of that reward has been increasing over time. So by 2032, if the entire world is producing less than 1 Bitcoin every 10 minutes, how much do you think 1 Bitcoin will be worth, right? At that point, Bitcoin's inflation rate will be 0.2% per year, right? 0.2% per year. That's extremely low, right? Golds will probably stay around the same at 1.5, 1.4%. Over time, we're going to see Bitcoin outperform gold significantly. We're gonna just see it outrun everything, right? I think we're gonna see some massive changes in price. We're gonna see some massive changes in who participates in the network, and over time, this scarcity is going to play a role in that, right? We're gonna see that as Bitcoin's scarcity increases, we're going to see the number for Bitcoin's rank as the most valuable asset in the world, highest market cap asset in the world. It'll jump, right? Eventually, we'll see Bitcoin go past, let's say, Microsoft, Apple. It'll get through everything, right? It'll get ahead of everything. The reason why it is because more people will be trusting it as a store of value. And over time, that's the trend, right? Right now, gold is the most trusted asset as a store of value because it has that history. It also has the security. You can't change it. On the other hand, Bitcoin's history is being built, right? As more people want to use Bitcoin, it gets stress tested. More people realize that this is the future, and more people will accumulate it, right? I think that's where the world is going. But let's look at Epoch 8. So at Epoch 8, we're going to see here that, Epoch 8. So we're going to see here that by the time 2036 hits, we're going to be at block 1,470,000. 99.2% of the Bitcoin supply will have been mined, right? You can see here in the first 4 years, 50% of it was mined. In the second 4 years, 75% of it was mined. I think I made a mistake here. Actually, this refers to this date right here, right? This refers to this date right here. So on January 3rd, 2009, 0% of the supply was mined. On November 28th, 2012, 50% of it was mined, right? Because what we're seeing is over time, the block subsidy is decreasing. July 9th, 2016, 75% was mined. May 11th, 2020, 87% was mined. April 19th, 2024, that was just a few days ago, 93.75% of the supply was mined, right? That's 93.75% of the supply is already held by people. People own it. Every coin that's been mined, people own it, right? People own those coins. By the end of this epoch, we're going to see by the end of 2028, 97%, 96.875% of the Bitcoin supply will have been mined. That means we have, what is it? It means about 657,000 coins. 657,000 coins are left for the entire world to mine. We can see the number. It's this number right here. I believe that's exact. Yeah, it is. So 657,000 coins are left to be mined for the entire world. And if you think about it, how many people right now actually own Bitcoin? Around you, I would assume less than 1%, unless you know a lot of people who understand technology, unless you work with a lot of people who understand the blockchain, all that stuff. Unless that's the case, a very small number of people around you actually own Bitcoin, right? And over time, I would assume that more people will understand what this thing is. More people will see that the inflation rate is lower than gold's. It's half of what gold's inflation rate is. Half, right? When more people see that, they're going to realize that this is going somewhere, right? This is not stagnant. We're going to see more as more blocks are created, as more of these blocks are added. We're at around 841,000 almost. But as more blocks are added, the history of Bitcoin becomes more and more powerful. Every block that's added to the network adds to the security of the network. It becomes more difficult to manipulate previous transactions, right? So over time, we're going to see the inflation rate continue to decrease. I wouldn't even call it an inflation rate because we know exactly how many coins will exist, right? We know exactly 21 million coins will exist, slightly less than 21 million. So the exact number of coins that will exist is right here. So it's 20,999,999.9975530. That's the total number of coins that will ever exist, right? Slightly under 21 million. Inflation, how I think of inflation is when new supply is added to the economy, these coins already exist, right? These coins we already know they're there. We can't change anything, right? We already know that they're there. It's almost like, if you think about it, if you have some kind of limited edition product, and let's say I think it was Nintendo that came up with something. Nintendo created some kind of collectible where they were creating one a day for a certain number of days, even though you already knew how many of those will exist in total. It doesn't mean that the ones that are created later have less value. If they're exactly the same, if they're identical, they have the same value, right? So we know for a fact that 21 million Bitcoin will exist. I don't consider the new production to be inflation. How I think of it is the new coins are just being distributed, right? These coins already exist. The network is using these coins as a security. People call it a security budget. These coins are being used as a security budget, these 21 million. Right now, the network has, so at this point, the network has about 1.3 million coins available to be used as a security budget, right? Right now, 19,687,000 coins have been issued. Over the next, so from 2024 all the way to 2140, there's going to be 1.3 million coins created. 1.3 million coins will be issued and added to the economy. What that means is that those coins are going to be accumulated by people. People who want Bitcoin are either going to have to mine, they're going to have to get them directly from the source, which is the Bitcoin network, or they're going to have to pay somebody to get those coins, right? And over time, as we see that Bitcoin's, so we can see here that Bitcoin's, I showed you that Bitcoin's supply is going to decrease. It's going to keep decreasing over time until we have barely any supply coming out. So we can see here that the last 36 years, from here to here, one coin is created, slightly more than 1.25 coins are created, right? And that's 36 years. So in 36 years, less than, a little bit more than one coin is created. In 32 years, less than one coin is created, right? In half of that 1.25 coins is created here in this epoch, and then the rest of it is available here. So the total supply that's going to be created from 2108 all the way to 2140 is 0.63 Bitcoin, less than 0.63 Bitcoin. So over time, we're going to see that this thing is going to become more and more scarce. Fewer and fewer people will be able to ignore it because the price will continue to go up. We're going to see, I can guarantee you, I would say, I don't know when it's going to happen. I can't guarantee when it will happen, but eventually we're going to see Bitcoin being more valuable, Bitcoin being seen as a higher market cap asset than gold, right? We're going to see more and more people offering more and more money, higher and higher amounts of money to accumulate Bitcoin. And that's just how it happens, right? As more people understand what it is, as more people see that the inflation rate is lower than gold's, that the production rate is lower than gold's. With gold, we have, like I said, we have no clue how much gold exists, right? With Bitcoin, we know exactly 21 million coins exist, slightly less than 21 million, we can see right here. If you own 1 ounce of gold, you own one out of a potentially unlimited amount of gold, right? Whatever the supply is in the on Earth, whatever the supply is in space. I don't know how that would work, but if we start bringing gold in from space, what's going to happen to the price of gold, right? More gold will be available. The price of gold will decrease because as supply goes up and demand doesn't keep up with supply, price will decrease. We're going to see that happen over time, right? That's inevitable. Every good, if we can scale the production of a good, we will, right? On the other hand, with Bitcoin, scaling is not possible, right? We already know exactly how many coins are going to be created. We can't increase the supply. But if you think about it, any amount of fiat currency can go into Bitcoin, right? So let's say if right now there's something like 60 million millionaires in the world, 21 million Bitcoin. I know that's, and a lot of people have heard of that, but here's how I think of it. Let's say a millionaire says let's say a billionaire says in 2044, they finally want 1 Bitcoin. They're going to have to offer money to somebody to get rid of their Bitcoin. Why would somebody take, let's say, less than a few $100,000 for their Bitcoin? Why would they do that? At that point, that few $100,000 will be next to worthless, right? What billionaires are going to do is they're going to have to offer more and more to get Bitcoin from people, to accumulate, to take Bitcoin from people, right? Right now, most of the world sees Bitcoin as a risk asset. They see Bitcoin as risky. They see it as a gamble, as a Ponzi scheme, as something that they shouldn't touch. I think I wouldn't even say by 2040. I think it would be much sooner. I think it would be by the time, I think even by the end of this cycle, but each one of these is a cycle. Each one of these is called an epoch. It's essentially a cycle. So you see a boom, a bust, and sideways movement. Boom, bust, sideways movement. Every boom essentially takes Bitcoin's price higher than the previous high. Every bust brings us to a higher low, because the support, more people understand Bitcoin in that. So let's say in this epoch, more people are going to understand Bitcoin, more bids will be available to buy Bitcoin, meaning that Bitcoin's price won't go as low, right? So what we're going to see over time is Bitcoin's price is going to make higher highs, higher lows. There will be less manipulation over time because most of these coins are already held by people, right? The people who hold Bitcoin today, do you think they're going to get rid of their coins for like $40,000, $50,000? Probably not, right? Unless they don't understand what Bitcoin is. I don't see people selling their Bitcoin for significantly less than what it's worth right now, right? I mean, in fact, I think most people are holding Bitcoin to they're buying Bitcoin to hold on to for a very, very long time, right? And that's completely normal. Why wouldn't they? Because they know that over time Bitcoin becomes more scarce. It becomes more difficult to produce. There's a limited supply. There's never going to be more than a certain amount. There's never going to be more than 21 million. Nobody can do anything about that. It doesn't matter how rich you are. Doesn't matter who you control. Doesn't matter what powers you have. You're not going to be able to increase the supply of Bitcoin, right? That's not possible because this supply is hard coded. The supply will continue to decrease by 50% every 4 years. The new supply being added to the economy will continue to decrease by 50% every 4 years. You can actually go through it. There's 34 epochs in total, 34. The last one, it's already done. So I would say 33 halvings where we can actually see Bitcoin supply decreasing, right? We're going to see this happen. This is going to happen. It's already known. We already know this is going to happen. So if the people who are studying Bitcoin right now, if they're accumulating Bitcoin, and over the next 4, 5, 10, 20, 50 years, more and more people are trying to understand Bitcoin. More and more people are trying to accumulate Bitcoin. The population increases. What happens when you have a finite supply asset being chased by a population that never stops growing? The number of people who want Bitcoin will always increase, right? Right now, we have maybe 1%, maybe 1.5% of people on Earth own Bitcoin. I don't even think it's that high, right? I would say even it's 0.5%. But out of those people, even fewer people actually understand what they own, right? Over time, more people will understand what they own. More people will watch my videos. My goal is to just help people understand what this thing is, right? I'm trying to spread this knowledge to make sure that I know where this is going. I understand where this is going. I've done the research. I know where this is going. I'm trying to spread the word because I want you to take advantage of this before, let's say, BlackRock accumulates everything and you can't get a hold of any coins, right? Eventually, it will become impossible to buy one Bitcoin because if you think about it, I would say the price by the end of this cycle could go to $500,000-$600,000 on a high end, maybe $200,000-$300,000 minimum, right? How many people can afford $200,000 all in one shot, right? How many people will be able to buy one Bitcoin? Probably not many. Over time, the price will get higher. It'll become more and more difficult to accumulate one whole coin. People will be looking for half a coin. People will be looking for 0.25 coins, 0.1, 0.01, right? I think if you want to own Bitcoin, the best thing you can do is just accumulate. I know these numbers are important, but don't focus on price. Focus on accumulation. Don't think about how low the price can go. Let's say people are sitting on the sidelines right now because they think there's going to be a crash, right? I think the most painful thing that could happen right now is Bitcoin goes to $100,000 and never comes back. Eventually that will happen, right? Eventually we're going to see Bitcoin at 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, $1 million, right? And by the time Bitcoin hits $1 million, almost everybody will be priced out of holding a whole coin. Bitcoin will be one whole coin will essentially be held by the elite, the very, very rich people, right? You can actually see here the amount of Bitcoin that's added per cycle in 2100 during that entire 4-year period. 1.25 Bitcoin are created. In 2104, 0.625 Bitcoin are created. In 2108, 0.3, right? It keeps decreasing because it's going to keep decreasing. I think most people don't really see where this is going because they don't understand the fact that this can't be changed. There's no way for you to convince somebody to increase the supply of Bitcoin. So to increase the supply of Bitcoin, essentially what you need to do is you need to create a fork of your own. If that fork fails, of course, most people probably won't move to it. Let's say you go from 21 million supply to 42 million. If nobody wants to come with you, that fork is going to fail, right? A lot of people are worried that this 21 million supply will be changed. The only reason to change that is to convince every single person who runs a Bitcoin node, a computer that basically has the blockchain, confirms that all transactions are going based on the rules. It's to convince all those people to change the software that they run to one where more than 21 million coins exist, right? That's not going to happen. You know for a fact that the people who are running Bitcoin nodes very likely own Bitcoin, right? Why would they dilute their own holdings to benefit someone else? That would hurt them, right? It would hurt them more than anybody else. It would hurt them because they've held this Bitcoin for a while. They run a node. They know what they're doing. They understand where this is going. Clearly, they would hold Bitcoin, right? If they run a node, they would hold Bitcoin. To convince them to increase the supply, you'd have to convince them to be willing to dilute their own holdings. That's not going to happen. The chances of that happening are next to zero, as close to zero as it gets, right? Over time, production will get more and more difficult. Like I said, the inflation rate will continue to increase. Bitcoin's already the scarcest asset in the world. After block 840,000, Bitcoin is now the scarcest asset in the world. So if we do a quick calculation here, if we have, so every day 144 blocks are created, so 10 blocks per minute times 3.125 times 365. This is the amount of Bitcoin that's created in a year, right? The total supply right now. So let's say over the next year, from April 19th, 2024 to April 19th, 2025, this is the amount of Bitcoin that's going to be produced, right? If we divide this by the total supply at the time, the total circulating supply at the time will go. So this is the total circulating supply on April 19th. So we'll go this divided by, sorry, my mic is in the way, divided by this plus this. Keep in mind, this is the 4-year inflation rate. This is the inflation rate for Bitcoin. This is the inflation rate for Bitcoin for that next year, right? 0.0827%. This is the 1-year inflation rate. This was a rounded figure. I divided by 3.8. This is the more exact figure right here, 0.0827. So that means 0.827%. This is the percentage. We'll add that here. 0.827%. That's the inflation rate. It's dropped to less than to a little bit more than half of what gold's inflation rate is, right? When you look at these numbers, it's almost a no-brainer, right? Anybody who understands this realizes that if you realize that scarcity is what determines price, you know for a fact that Bitcoin's price will go up as fewer people are willing to sell their coins because there's nothing better to trade up to, right? What are you going to trade up to? You're probably going to use your Bitcoin to pay for goods and services, but you're not going to. Why would you sell your Bitcoin and hold on to dollars, right? Why would you sell your Bitcoin and hold on to stocks? Stocks are going to underperform Bitcoin very, very likely over the next 20, 30 years. Why would you sell your Bitcoin to buy real estate? Same thing. Real estate will underperform Bitcoin significantly over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? Over time, fewer people are willing to get rid of their coins. Fewer people are willing to sell their coins to give you their coins. And that's what increases the price, right? So we can see every cycle, the price has gone up. At the end of the first epoch, Bitcoin's price was $12.48. At the maximum of that second epoch here, from November 12th, from November 28th, 2012 to July 9th, 2016, the highest price was $1,163. The next one, it was $19,333. This last cycle, it hit almost $69,000. I think this was the number. I saw this somewhere. It was $68,982. Let's say $69,000. What do you think it'll be here, right? More people understand Bitcoin. We have the ETFs. We have more buying from people who understand it, who will probably never sell, right? A lot of people are probably not going to sell until $1 million or more. A lot of people, there are going to be people along the way, of course, who sell, but the people who truly understand Bitcoin are probably never going to sell. Their coins are never going to come back to the economy, right? A lot of coins are lost. So even this supply, it's not accurate, right? A lot of coins can't be accessed. They're never going to be accessed. So there's estimates that say 3 to 5 million coins are lost. So let's say this goes down to 16 million instead of 21 million, 16 million. That makes it even more scarce. So in total, the estimates show that there are around 500,000 whole coiners, people who own whole Bitcoin. I think the number is less, right? Because you can almost assume that there's going to be people who own more than one wallet. There's going to be people who own thousands of coins. There's going to be people who Satoshi Nakamoto owns something like 1.1 million Bitcoin, and those coins haven't moved, right? Those coins are going to be there. So the price here, once people really understand that Bitcoin's inflation rate is lower than gold's, gold has been so great because it's the hardest asset in the world, right? It's the most difficult to produce asset in the world. It was. Now Bitcoin is the most difficult to produce, right? And that'll continue to go lower, right? By 2028, 0.4%, 2032, 0.2%. And by the end of whenever let's say by the end of 2032, 2034, I think Bitcoin will be the most valuable asset in the world by market cap, right? I think this is something that most people don't truly understand right now. Most people don't get it. And that's okay, right? If you're watching this video, now you get it. You're one of the first people who understand this. April 24th, 2024. Most people don't understand this. You're one of the first people. You're probably one of the less than 1% who understand this, right? Of course, less than 1%. Most people who own Bitcoin, almost every single person who owns Bitcoin doesn't understand this, right? The chances of them understanding this are very low. Otherwise, they'd hold Bitcoin. But once you understand this, it becomes almost impossible not to want to own Bitcoin. Even if you were to own 0.1 Bitcoin, 0.1 Bitcoin is today it costs you about $6,500, $6,400 or so. In 2044 at block 10 at epoch 10, the global supply every 10 minutes will be less than 0.1 Bitcoin. That's the global supply, right? In 2060, the global supply will be less than 0.01 Bitcoin, right? At this point, I think the only thing that you can really think about, don't worry about getting the best price. Just think about accumulating. You know for a fact that this thing will be worth a lot more, eventually be worth $1 million a coin, 10 million a coin, $100 million a coin. That will happen, right? I don't know when it'll happen. Eventually it will. But your goal should be just to accumulate, right? So for example, at epoch 14, the block subsidy is 610,352 Satoshis. So 0.00610,352 Bitcoin, right? Today, you can buy 0.00610,352 Bitcoin for, I think it's about $500, $600. That's not that much. Actually, significantly less than $600. Maybe about $400, right? So $400 today, by 2060, could probably be worth $1 million. I wouldn't be surprised, right? I really wouldn't be surprised if that 610,000 Satoshis by 2060 is worth $1 million. Eventually, we're going to see the US. That's before inflation is accounted for. So that's nominal numbers. The real number by then may be something like $200,000, $300,000. But again, $400 today, to $200,000, $300,000 by then, right? By then, I think the dollar will have lost 80, 90% of its value, but the nominal value will be about $1 million for this. That's my estimate. I could be completely wrong. These numbers aren't to be used for financial decisions. Just think about this. Look at the data. Look at how Bitcoin works. You can see everything on mempool. So the website is mempool.space. You can follow every single transaction that ever happens. So it's mempool.space. I've gone on this website before. This is a site that you can check out. It's a blockchain explorer, not affiliated with them. I have nothing to do with them. I just like how it looks. I like how it works. Check that site out. It shows you every single transaction that's ever happened. So if you look through this, if you look through these numbers, you're going to see Bitcoin's inflation is the lowest. It's the scarcest asset in the world. It will continue to become more and more scarce. And anybody who owns it will very likely be extremely wealthy in the coming years, coming decades. I don't see a way around that, right? Over time, more and more people will want this. Bitcoin is called a Veblen good because as the price increases, more people want it. That's just how things work, right? Gold is exactly the same way. People see that things like Louis Vuitton bags work the same way. But Bitcoin is one of those things that as the price increases, more people pay attention to it. More people want to own it. More people are willing to risk at least a little bit of their wealth on it. And that's just natural, right? Because when the price goes up, people think it's going to go up even more, right? That's just the natural progression of things. Keep in mind, I don't think most people are going to understand Bitcoin. They're not going to own Bitcoin. They're not going to even touch Bitcoin before it reaches $1 million. So if you're in now, if you're learning now, you are extremely early. You're getting 94% off, 93% off the next few years price of Bitcoin, right? So let's say if you have 10 years, it would be difficult to not be at $1 million by then, I would say, by 2034, 2033. 2032, there's a halving. After the halving, so after this halving, April 19th, 2024, the halvings happen, and then 6 to 12 months later, we see a new peak formed, right? So by 2032, I think we would see a new peak about 6 months later, let's say, 6 to 12 months later. So let's say it's around January 2032. We're going to see a peak between, let's say, October and December 2032, right? If the halving happens in January, by October to December 2032, we're going to see a peak. Who knows if the cycles will continue to work the same way they do right now? Because less and less supply is the halving is less significant over time because less of the supply is actually being added to the economy. More of it is already held by people, and that's what determines the amount being sold. So right now, we can see the prices going down because Grayscale is a company that has a trust that holds a ton of Bitcoin. They're selling. They have to sell. They're selling more. They sold more Bitcoin over the last few months, last 3 months. I think they sold 300,000 Bitcoin over the last 3 months. The total supply, the total production of Bitcoin over the last 3 months was significantly less, right? So the production was about 900 Bitcoin per day. I'm going to calculate it. 900 times 90. The total production was about 81,000 Bitcoin. Grayscale is being drained because their ETF fee is way too high, right? People are selling their Bitcoin. They're getting rid of their Bitcoin. A lot of companies who are bankrupt are holding that trust, and they're getting rid of their shares to repay their investors. And because of that, we saw about 300,000 Bitcoin being sold over the last 3 months. The supply, the creation, the production was 81,000 Bitcoin, right? 900 Bitcoin per day times 90 days, right? 90 to 100 days or 120 days or so. It was about 81 to 100,000, the production. But Grayscale investors they sold about 300,000. So we saw the price dip, but we also saw the price more than double because of the ETFs. The ETFs in total accumulated about 220, 230,000 Bitcoin in that time, right? After Grayscale's dumpage, right? And over time, we're just going to see more people interested in the ETFs. I think more people are going to want exposure. More countries are going to come up with their own ETFs. this inflation rate is going to seem like nothing, right? By then, the only way to get more Bitcoin will be to convince somebody who holds it to sell it to you, right? And because of that, price will continue to go up. So let's do the calculation for 1 year. By the time we have, I'm just going to paste this here. By the time we have, I'm going to change this number. So we'll go from 3.125. We'll change this to just referencing a cell. Yeah, so that's there. This is going to be the yearly production. This is the yearly production for each epoch, right? 164,250 Bitcoin are going to be produced over the next year. Then in epoch 6, we're going to see 82,000 Bitcoin being produced per year. Epoch 7, 41,000 Bitcoin. In 2092, 1.25 Bitcoin being created per year. Per year, right? That just blows my mind, right? Right now, 1.25 Bitcoin is under 100,000 US dollars. By then, 1.25 Bitcoin is going to be produced per year. So if you can accumulate, use this opportunity, right? Use this opportunity to figure out where Bitcoin is going. Use this opportunity to accumulate how much Bitcoin, however much Bitcoin you can. Right now, the ETFs are buying something like 300 to 500 Bitcoin per day. The beginning of when they were just issued, they were buying something like 10,000 Bitcoin per day, right? In 2060, there's going to be 320 Bitcoin per year. In 2052, there's going to be 1,282 Bitcoin produced per year. And this number is going to keep dropping. It's going to keep dropping. So if you can, get your hands on some right now. This thing is a lot more scarce than people think. This thing is a lot more scarce than people even can imagine. I don't think most people can imagine. They can't wrap their head around the scarcity that we have here, right? Put your head into it. Understand what this thing is. Put in the time. Watch the videos that I've posted. I've posted like 10, 11 videos so far. Watch them. Understand where this is going. And I think it's impossible for somebody not to want to accumulate more. That's it for today. Bitcoin's inflation rate will continue to be lower than gold's for the rest of our lives. We're never going to see Bitcoin's inflation rate going higher than gold again, right? Bitcoin's inflation rate over the next 4 years is less than the inflation rate of the dollar over a year, right? Those are some things to take away. I really hope I hope this was valuable. I hope this made a difference to how you look at Bitcoin, how you think of Bitcoin, what it makes you believe, what it makes you think where the world is going. That's it for today. Have a great rest of your day.